It's a cold December day in Pottsville. Members of the United Presbyterian Church are doing what they do every Thursday, feeding the community.
We have been having 25 to 30 people on a Thursday.
The weekly food pantry,
I'm 75, my wife's 83.
All righty.
is a source of joy for church members.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate this.
Sure, no problem. Will that work there?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, Merry Christmas.
The church itself was built in 1874, and like many churches, its sanctuary is lined with stained glass windows.
The windows themselves are breathtaking. If anybody that likes stained glass, knows the name Tiffany, they're beautiful.
While several are believed to be Tiffany windows, only 2 are signed. Both were donated as memorials for church members. One of them, made in 1913, honors Civil War veteran and Pottsville businessman Heber S. Thompson.
Mr. Thompson, he was involved in everything. He was involved in the church. He actually was one of the founders of the Historical Society.
6 years later, in 1919, a second signed window was donated in the name of Sarah Ann Durr, her son Louis overseeing every detail of the window's design. Its installation came at a time when Pottsville and the nation were just coming out of the Spanish flu pandemic, so the townspeople were excited to get out and see the colorful addition to the church.
When Mrs. Durr's window went in, there was a big dedication. There was articles in the newspaper when it went in and how they celebrated the dedication of it.
These windows are tremendous examples of Tiffany Studio's work at the height of its power and at the height of the power of its lead designer, Agnes Northrop.
Tiffany Studios was founded by Louis Comfort Tiffany in Corona, New York in 1885. Before Tiffany, stained glass windows were made of mostly translucent glass that was painted. Tiffany, who was already a well-established designer, experimented in making objects out of broken jars that had imperfections in the glass. Those imperfections inspired Tiffany, whose desire to create his own specialized glass would elevate glassmaking to an art form.
Tiffany, who was trained as a painter, wanted to create paintings made of glass. So he charged his chemists and his glassmakers with manipulating the glass while it was hot into these wonderful folds and ripples and dapples of translucency so that he could really paint effects with textured glass, with patterned glass, rather than painting these on the surface.
The result was the trademark fevrier glass, meaning handmade. It was used to create a variety of items from vases to lamps. But the most majestic of Tiffany's creations were the windows. In churches, stained glass windows were often used to convey the teachings of the Bible. While Tiffany did many religious windows, the River of Life theme became popular for memorials. The River of Life being a signature image of Tiffany designer Agnes Northrop.
Agnes Northrop was known for her landscape and garden scenes. And these 2 windows are precisely that. There's water flowing through the middle, receding into the background towards mountains with lush foliage.
They have tall cypress trees that symbolize everlasting life and a profusion of brilliant blossoms in the foreground. In one of the windows, we see these beautiful pink rhododendron. In the other window, we have this wonderful lush bank of irises and beautiful pond lilies floating on the surface of this river of life. Pulls you down the winding river to the distant mountain range that is sort of hazy in the background, very atmospheric, and that was rendered in a method that Tiffany was pioneering called plating glass.
Northrop, like Tiffany, was an artist. She would paint her designs in watercolor and then give them to a group of women known as the Tiffany Girls, who would select the glass for each piece.
They would go to shelves, just like you see here, and they would begin to pull sheets of glass that they thought were appropriate for the trees, the flower, the waterfalls, the mountains, the sky.
Many of the Tiffany Girls were first-generation Americans who came to New York for a new life and found a career assembling Tiffany creations.
So it was a mix of professional artistry, artisans, and women who did a lot of sort of thinking on their feet and were quick to pick up the techniques of selecting and cutting the glass.
The rich history behind the Tiffany windows is something United Presbyterian Church members have cherished for more than a century.
Having services in here and having the beautiful windows, depending on the time of the day or at night, they all look different. How the light comes through the windows, it shines, how it changes over time or throughout the day.
Over the years, the church has been approached by people who wanted to buy the windows, and each time,
selling the windows was always out of the question.
But recent events have forced the congregation to reconsider.
Our heating system, which was coal, was costing us a fortune and becoming more and more inefficient.
Al Matz is the head of United Presbyterian's Buildings and Grounds Committee. Matz says the church has done some capital campaigns in the past to pay for maintenance and repairs to the church, but with an aging and dwindling congregation, a difficult choice had to be made.
It was kind of a divine intervention that it just came about. We had hardly started thinking about actually selling the windows. The Allentown Art Museum contacted us.
Matt says after learning about the history of the Allentown Art Museum, the congregation decided to sell their precious Tiffany windows.
There's incredible symmetry. Part of this museum is housed in the former First Presbyterian Church of Allentown, and these windows are coming from a Presbyterian church only about an hour away. This museum tells stories about this region, about the rich history of this region, and these windows are from this region. They are part of that rich artistic and cultural heritage that this museum strives to celebrate.
Once the agreement was made, Allentown Art Museum curators came to the church and the planning process began.
They had a lift, which was outside, that they could get up and get a close look at the outside of the windows. And being a Tiffany window, there's different layers of the glass, and you can actually see. She took me up, and we, were able to see it. It's amazing the workmanship of the windows.
They are in incredible condition. For windows of this size, for windows of this age, they are in really fine condition, which doesn't mean that they won't need to be conserved. Being in a church exposed to the elements for over 100 years takes its toll on any art object.
Each window consists of 6 panels. It will take several days for a team of experts and conservators to carefully remove each panel and replace them with clear glass.
Transparency will then be applied to that glass so that to the untrained eye it will look precisely like the windows themselves.
The Tiffany windows will then be boxed up and sent off to be restored. Lindsay Parrott with Long Island City's Neustadt Museum has spent her career studying Tiffany glass. Parrott is a consultant on the Art Museum's window acquisition.
We have a variety of glass here in the Neustadt's Tiffany Glass Archive that shows the types of glass that he was innovating.
The Neustadt houses a treasure trove of the only remaining uncut glass made by Tiffany Studios and sold after the company closed in 1930. Parrott says glass like this would commonly be used for flowing gowns or garments.
So this first one we're looking at is called drapery glass. And this is a type of glass where they would take molten glass, they would ladle it onto a metal rolling table, pass what amounts to a rolling pin over it, and then move the rolling pin in such a way that the glass would be pushed into these ribs. And so you can see this direction of the glass being manipulated and pushed into these folds. This is a landscape window. What you're seeing is the back of it, but it is quite similar to the one that Allentown will be acquiring. And so you can see the variety of glass that's been used for the canopy of the tree. We even have a little bit of pink glass here. You can also see that some of the glass has been plated, so that means it's been layered. These are 2 or 3 pieces thick here.
As part of its collection, the Neustadt has several Tiffany windows that are in need of restoration. Parrott says the United Presbyterian windows are in good shape despite their age.
If the window is in a kind of a straight picture plane, removing it will be a lot easier. Restoring it, conserving it will be much easier. And likely what will happen is that cracks will be glued and dirt will be removed.
Before the restoration of the windows is complete, the Allentown Art Museum must prepare the perfect space in which to exhibit them.
These aren't just objects that we hang on a wall. In the galleries around us right now, we have, paintings and sculptures and photographs and works on paper and textiles. These are 14-foot tall windows that are meant to be illuminated from one side. And so they represent a very unique challenge.
It's a challenge that Allentown Art Museum President and CEO Max Weintraub says the museum is excited to meet, and one that will define it.
The milestone acquisition of these windows will be on our timeline, on this museum's historical timeline. It's that important. And there have been moments that have defined this museum, including the acquisition of the Frank Lloyd Wright Room in the 1970s. And it's always been by the community, for the community.
The Allentown Art Museum is now seeking donations from the community to help it complete the purchase of the windows. Weintraub says he believes the restored windows will become an important pilgrimage site for Tiffany lovers and for those who want to share in the history of our region. The Congregation of United Presbyterian says the deal with the museum was divine intervention. They can now pay for their heating system and keep programs like the food pantry going. There's also talk about getting an elevator to help older and disabled congregants attend services. Grounds and Buildings Chair Al Matt says the windows turned out to be a blessing for everyone.
It's not us selling the windows as much as sharing them with a lot more people and just being able to enjoy the beauty of them.